Claude Code can run you $250 per dev per month, and Ollama does the same job for $0. You're running a team of 5, that's 15 grand a year, just evaporating. Local AI is mainstream now, so I'm putting Ollama against Claude Code across 5 head-to-head tests to see which one actually fits your workflow. That cost gap is real, but the benchmark scores tell a pretty different story, and the deployment test might be the one that actually decides it for you. My name is Brian, and I'm in these tools 12 hours a day, so you don't have to be. And every number in this video is traced back to official pricing pages and docs both companies actually publish. This one's for any dev or team choosing between free local inference and a paid coding agent for daily work. Test 1. Cost. The objection I keep seeing in comments is that Ollama is free, but people say that can't hold once you factor in hardware. And yeah, the honest answer is it depends on where you are in the stack, because the numbers look really different at entry level versus scale. So let me show you what I actually found. I looked at the full pricing ladder, and Ollama Local is literally $0 a month, forever, while Claude Code starts at $20 per month and climbs to $200 for the max 20x plan, and at scale vendor figures put Claude Code at $150 to $250 per dev per month, while Ollama's cost is just upfront hardware with no per seat fee, which is a pretty wild gap when you run the math across a team. Ollama takes cost, and it's not subtle. I was expecting a hardware cost to close the gap, but locally, Ollama is just free, and Claude Code starts at $20 and scales way past that. So for a solo dev, it's manageable, but for a team, it compounds fast. Ollama leads 1-0. Test 2. Coding benchmark performance. A solo dev shipping a production feature on a Friday deadline needs to know whether their local model can actually close the ticket, or whether it's going to stall out on a tricky refactor and cost them hours. And the gap is real, and it shows up in the numbers. What surprised me was how clear the gap actually is. Claude Code with Opus 5.0 scores 84% on ASBWE Bench Pro across 350 cases. And for Ollama, I couldn't find a published figure for the same benchmark. So community reports putting local models at 70 to 80% of GPT-4o on everyday tasks are decent. But those are community numbers, not a controlled head-to-head. And Ollama needs at least a 7B model for tool calling to work at all. Claude Code takes coding benchmark performance because 84% on SWE Bench Pro is a real source number, and Ollama just doesn't have a comparable published figure. I thought the community parity reports would make this closer, but frontier coding performance is clearly Claude Code's lane, and that ties it up at 1 apiece. Test 3. Speed. The number that jumped out at me right away was 112 tokens per second, which is what Ollama hits on an M4 Max with the new MLX backend. But Claude Code has a fast mode claiming up to 2.5 times faster output that costs extra on top of the subscription. So the real question is whether raw decode, speed, and cloud fast mode are even the same thing. Ollama 0.19 with MLX hits 112 tokens per second decode on an M4 Max, about 1.93 times faster than before that update, and Claude Code's fast mode goes up to 2.5 times faster. But that costs $10 to $50 per $1 million tokens on top of your plan. And I want to be clear that these are different harnesses running different models, so you can't stack them side by side cleanly. The caveat on speed is that Ollama's 112 tokens per second is a local decode number on specific Apple Silicon hardware, while Claude Code's 2.5 times fast mode is a cloud throughput claim on a subscription tier. So they're measuring speed in completely different contexts, and calling one faster than the other isn't really fair, because your actual experience depends on your machine, your plan, and your task size. Speed is a tie. I was expecting one of them to pull ahead clearly, but the comparison just doesn't hold up across different harnesses, and both are fast in their own context. So neither one wins on a fair same setup basis, and the score stays at 1-1, one tied. Alright, so we still have context and output limits and deployment coming up, and the deployment test is the one I think is going to matter most for a lot of you, because it's where the privacy and offline question finally gets answered with real data. So stick around because that one could flip your decision entirely depending on your setup. Test 4. Context and output limits. The day your tool hits a session cap mid-refactor and you're locked out for 5 hours, that's a real productivity hit. So I wanted to understand how each tool meters usage, because the billing model here is completely different, and it affects how much you can actually get done in a single session. What I looked at was how each tool actually counts usage. Ollama Cloud meters GPU time, while Claude Code meters tokens and refills every 5 hours. Both have weekly caps on the cloud side, but local Ollama has no prompt limits at all by design, because you're running on your own hardware, and Claude Max 20x allows around 800 prompts per 5-hour window, which is a lot, but it's still a cap. The caveat here is that comparing GPU time billing to token billing is kind of apples and oranges, because Ollama Cloud and Claude Code are metering completely different things. So you can't say one is more generous without knowing your specific workload, and a heavy code gen session might burn through Claude Code's token budget faster than Ollama's GPU time budget, or the other way around. Context and output limits is a tie. I thought local Ollama's unlimited prompt capacity would push it to a clear win, but the billing models are different enough that you can't call it fairly without knowing your workload. Both tools have meaningful limits in their cloud tiers, and the score moves to 1 to 1, 2 tied. Test 5. Deployment and modality. The objection I hear a lot is that both tools run on your machine. So what's the real difference? And that's not quite right, because one of them requires an internet connection and sends your code to the cloud every single time, while the other one never does, and that distinction matters a lot if you're working on anything sensitive. What I found is a real split in strengths. Ollama runs 100% offline on your hardware with over 40,000 community integrations across macOS, Linux, Windows, and Docker, while Claude Code requires cloud API access every time, but spans terminal, web, mobile, IDEs like VS Code and JetBrains, Slack, and GitHub, so the platform reach is just way wider for Claude Code, but the privacy story is completely Ollama's. These tools are genuinely optimized for different things. Ollama wins on privacy and offline capability. Claude Code wins on platform reach and IDE depth, and neither one is objectively better at deployment overall, because it really depends on whether your constraint is data privacy or workflow integration, and if you need both, you're kind of stuck picking the one that hurts less. Deployment and modality is a tie. Ollama's offline capability is the clear differentiator for privacy, but Claude Code's multi-platform reach is genuinely broader. Both win something real here, so no points change hands. And the final score is Ollama 1, Claude Code 1, 3 tied. So where does Ollama clearly win? Cost is the big one. $0 a month locally versus up to $200 a month for Claude Code. Privacy is the other one, because your source code never leaves your machine. And if you want model flexibility, Ollama lets you swap any open weight model so you're not locked into one provider's roadmap. And where does Claude Code clearly win? Frontier coding performance, full stop. An 84% SWE Bench Pro score is a real number with no local equivalent. There's no hardware barrier, so it works on any machine with internet. The platform reach is wider, covering mobile, Slack, and every major IDE, and fast mode gives you up to 2.5 times faster output when you need to move quick. Alright, so here's the decision rule. If cost and privacy are your constraints, pick Ollama, it's free. And if you need the best coding agent and you can pay $20 a month, pick Claude Code, because that $250 per dev per month gap I mentioned at the start is real, and it's the number that drives this whole decision. Now, if you're leaning toward Claude Code, but you want to know whether a free alternative can actually keep up in a real agent workflow, go watch my video on DeepSeek V4 Pro versus Claude Code, where I ran the same kind of free stack test, and the results were pretty interesting.